In a luxurious restaurant, a millionaire offers food to two street girls in exchange for cleaning the bathroom. Hungry and with no alternatives, the twins accept without hesitation. But when he discovers who they really are, the man feels the weight of overwhelming guilt. In tears, he realizes that his petty gesture may have cost him much more than he imagined. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, tell us which city you're watching us from, and we'll keep going, Daniel observed. His empire through the enormous windows of Palazzo, his most prestigious restaurant in the city. The establishment, with its walls covered in Italian marble and Czech crystal chandeliers, was the ultimate symbol of his success. At the age of 45, he had built a gastronomic empire that made the eyes of Minas Gerais high society shine. That autumn morning, as he sipped his imported espresso, his thoughts were interrupted by Marco, the maitre d' who had been serving him for over a decade. "Sir, we have a problem with the cleaning staff again," Marco said, nervously adjusting his bow tie. "This is the third employee who has resigned this week." Daniel frowned, irritated at the interruption to his morning routine. His restaurant was known for its excellence in every detail, from the precise temperature of the wine to the impeccable shine of the silverware. A problem with cleanliness could tarnish its immaculate reputation. "How much are the outsourcing companies asking for?" he asked, already mentally calculating the impact on his profit margins. "The lowest offer is $4,800 per month, sir. They claim that the Palazzo's standards require specialized professionals." Daniel nearly choked on his coffee. It was an absurd amount of money to clean bathrooms, no matter how luxurious they were. In his years of business experience, he had learned that every penny saved was a penny earned. He hadn't gotten to where he was by being a spendthrift. The restaurant was housed in a historic mansion in the heart of the city's most exclusive neighborhood. Egyptian linen tablecloths, French porcelain plates, and a wine cellar stocked with rare labels were just some of the luxuries that made the Palazzo a hotspot for the local elite. But Daniel, despite all his wealth, maintained an almost unhealthy obsession with saving money. His success story was well known. The son of simple merchants, he had built his first restaurant at the age of 25 with meticulously saved savings. Today, at 45, he owned a chain of high-end establishments, but maintained the same austere habits as always. As he pondered the problem, he watched the hustle and bustle of the street through the window. Imported cars were constantly stopping, bringing the cream of local society for their business lunches. The Palazzo was more than a restaurant, it was a status symbol. It was at that moment that two unusual figures caught his attention. Two girls, apparently twins, were approaching the restaurant. Their simple clothes and bare feet contrasted drastically with the refined ambiance of the place. Daniel watched, intrigued, as they hesitated at the entrance. The more determined of the two gently pushed the tempered glass door, making the golden bell tinkle softly. Marco, ever alert, moved quickly to intercept them, but Daniel gestured for him to wait. The girls couldn't have been more than 12 years old. They were identical, with brown hair tied in simple ponytails and large, expressive eyes. The only noticeable difference was their posture. While one kept her chin up in determination, the other seemed to want to hide behind her sister. "Can I help you?" Daniel asked, his deep voice echoing through the still empty hall. The bravest girl stepped forward. "My name is Sophia, and this is my sister Elena," she said, her voice surprisingly firm. "We heard you needed someone to clean the restaurant." Daniel arched an eyebrow, torn between amusement and disbelief. The audacity of these children was something he had not encountered in years in his social circles, where everything was measured and calculated. "And what makes you think you can work here?" he asked, more out of curiosity than real interest. "We always take care of the cleaning where we live," Sophia replied, "and we can work for much less than any company." "As? A plate of food? A day, to share between the two of us." The silence that followed was thick. Marco, still standing near the door, looked horrified at the mere possibility. But Daniel, the man who had built an empire based on shrewd financial decisions, began to do the math in his head. One plate of food a day, even from the Palazzo's sophisticated menu, would be infinitely cheaper than any alternative. It was a tempting, if completely unusual, proposition. "And how can I be sure they'll do a good job?" he asked, studying the girls' expressions carefully. It was then that Eleanor, the shyest, spoke for the first time. "We can start today. If you don't like our work, you don't have to give us anything." There was something in Elena's quiet determination that touched a long, dormant chord in Daniel's heart. For a brief moment, he saw himself reflected in those children, the same hunger for opportunity that had driven him in his youth. "Very well," he decided to Marco's surprise. "They start today, but at the first slip-up—" "You won't regret it, sir," Sophia interrupted, a smile lighting up her face. What Daniel didn't know, as he watched the two girls being led by Marco to the back of the restaurant, was that this seemingly insignificant decision was about to trigger a series of events that would transform not only his life, but that of the entire community around him. The days that followed brought a subtle but noticeable change to the Palazzo's routine. Sophia and Elena arrived promptly at 6 in the morning, before the sun had even fully risen. With surprising dedication, they transformed the restaurant's bathrooms into veritable mirrors of marble and porcelain. Marco, initially skeptical about Daniel's decision, began to notice something peculiar about the twins. While they were doing their jobs, Sophia always found a moment to interact with the employees who arrived, learning their names and stories. Eleanor, on the other hand, observed everything with attentive eyes, absorbing every detail of the restaurant's operations. "You know, Mr. Marco," Sophia said one morning as they polished the mirrors, "Mrs. Maria from the kitchen told me that you've been working here since it opened." The maitre d', taken aback by the observation, adjusted his impeccable waistcoat. "Yes, 15 years ago, I've seen this place grow from nothing." "And Mr. Daniel? He was always so austere?" Marco added, allowing himself a rare smile. "Not always. There was a time when he was different." Marco's words aroused the curiosity of the girls, especially Eleanor, who momentarily stopped her work to listen. The maitre d', noticing their genuine interest, continued, "Daniel lost someone very special a few years ago. Since then, he has thrown himself into business as if nothing else mattered. Money has become his only measure of success." The twins exchanged meaningful glances, as if they were sharing a silent secret. At that moment, Victoria, the restaurant manager, approached with her clipboard always in hand. "The girls are doing an exceptional job," she commented to Marco, pretending not to notice that the twins could hear her. "I've never seen the bathroom so spotless. Even the most demanding customers have complimented them." In fact, the girls' presence had brought more than just cleanliness to the palazzo. There was something about their simplicity and dedication that contrasted dramatically with the ostentatious atmosphere of the restaurant. The staff, accustomed to the coldness of professional relationships, began to feel more at ease. Meanwhile, Daniel watched everything from a distance. From his usual table near the main window, he discreetly monitored the changes. He noticed how Sophia could bring a smile to even the most serious customers' faces, and how Eleanor had a natural talent for organization that went beyond simple cleaning. One day during lunch break, something unusual happened. An important client, socialite Olivia, dropped her diamond bracelet in the bathroom. It was Elena who found the jewel, and without hesitation, she ran to return it. "What admirable honesty!" Olivia exclaimed, genuinely impressed. "Daniel, where did you find these girls?" Daniel, who was nearby, felt uncomfortable. "They showed up one day offering their services." "Well, you should give them more opportunities. They have potential for much more than cleaning toilets." Olivia's words echoed in Daniel's mind. That afternoon, he observed the twins more closely. He noticed how Sophia memorized the customers' orders just by listening, and how Elena organized the cleaning supplies with the precision of a little manager. But there was something that intrigued him more and more. Every day, after finishing their work, the girls received their pay, a dish from the executive menu. At first, they ate it right there in the corner of the kitchen, but in the last few weeks, they started asking for takeout. "Why don't they eat here anymore?" Victoria asked one day, worried. "We need to take it home," Sophia replied quickly, as Elena carefully stored the food in makeshift jars. Daniel, who was passing by the hallway at the time, stopped to watch. At the scene, there was something in the girl's eyes, a mixture of gratitude and concern, that disturbed him. He remembered his own childhood, when he had also known the face of need. That night, after the restaurant closed, he found a small, folded note next to the bathroom sink. It was a simple drawing on scrap paper, two little girls holding hands with other smaller figures, and a sentence written in childish handwriting, "Thank you for helping us help." The note aroused in Daniel a curiosity that he could no longer ignore. Who were those girls really? Where did they take their food every day, and why did two such young children carry such great responsibilities in their eyes? Determined to find out the truth, Daniel made a decision that would change the course of his story. The next time the girls left with their meal, he would follow them. What he didn't know was that this decision would lead him to confront not only the reality of the twins, but also his own inner demons. Night was falling over the city, and the lights of the palazzo were beginning to dim. In his office, Daniel tucked the small note into his drawer, feeling as though he was about to discover a secret that would change his perspective forever. The next afternoon, Daniel prepared for his impromptu mission. He changed from his usual Italian suit to more modest clothes and waited in the car, watching the back exit of the restaurant. Promptly at 5 o'clock, Sophia and Elena emerged, carrying their precious containers of the day's lunch. The girls walked quickly but carefully so as not to spill anything. Daniel kept a safe distance, his luxury car standing out from the increasingly simple streets they passed through. The landscape gradually changed. The imposing buildings gave way to modest constructions. The well-kept asphalt turned into potholed streets. After 20 minutes of walking, the twins arrived in a region that Daniel had never imagined visiting. Near the polluted river that ran through the city, under an old bridge, there was a small makeshift camp. Old tarps and cardboard formed precarious shelters against the weather. Daniel parked discreetly, and for the first time in years felt his heart sink. There, in that desolate scene, several children ran to welcome Sophia and Eleanor. There were 6 in total, aged between 4 and 10, all with the same bright eyes of hope as they saw the lunchboxes arriving. "Mommy!" one of the younger children shouted. "Bela and Mari brought food." Daniel watched, transfixed, as a thin, pale woman emerged from one of the makeshift shelters. Anna, as he would soon learn her name was, had the same delicate features as the twins, but her face was lined with weariness and illness. With an organization that seemed rehearsed, Sophia and Elena began to distribute small portions of the food, first to the youngest, then to their mother, and finally, they divided what was left among themselves, which was not much. "Mari," said one of the little children, "will you tell that story about the pretty restaurant again?" Eleanor, usually so quiet, smiled sweetly. "Once upon a time there was a magical place where the silverware shines like stars and the plates look like works of art." Daniel felt something warm run down his face. A tear, he realized with surprise. How long had it been since he had cried? Years, maybe decades. There was the explanation for the girls' behavior. They were working not just for themselves, but for an entire family. At that moment, a violent coughing fit interrupted Elena's narrative. The girl put her hand to her mouth, trying to hide it, but Daniel noticed how her small body contracted with the effort. "Mari, you need to rest," Sophia said, worried. "It's getting worse." "I'm fine," Elena replied, but her weak voice betrayed her words. Daniel watched as Anna approached her daughters, her movements slow and painful. "My little warriors," she murmured, hugging them both. They shouldn't be carrying so much weight. The scene was too much for Daniel to bear. Long-suppressed memories began to surface, his own humble childhood, his parents' sacrifices, the promise he had made to himself never to want again. Somewhere along the way, that promise had turned into an obsession with accumulating wealth, forgetting the true value of things. As he watched the family united despite all the adversity, Daniel began to question all his life choices. The palazzo, his pride and symbol of success, suddenly seemed empty and meaningless compared to the wealth of love and dedication he saw there. Night was beginning to fall, and with it came a light drizzle. Daniel watched as the children quickly organized themselves to protect the few belongings they had. Sophia and Eleanor worked in sync, helping their younger siblings to shelter, always, putting the needs of others before their own. It was then that Daniel noticed something even more disturbing. Elena wasn't just tired. Her skin had a yellowish tint, and every movement seemed to cost her an immense effort. The girl who hours before had been impeccably cleaning her luxury restaurant could now barely stand up. That night, returning to his empty mansion, Daniel couldn't sleep. The images of what he had witnessed wouldn't leave him. The contrast between his crystal world and the harsh reality of that family haunted him. How could he have been so blind? How had he not noticed the signs before? But he knew one thing for sure. He could no longer pretend he didn't know. He could no longer hide behind his spreadsheets of costs and profit margins. For the first time in years, Daniel felt something awakening inside him. Something that had long been dormant: compassion. The next morning, when Sophia and Elena arrived for work, they would find a different Daniel. A man who, after years of living only for himself, was about to rediscover the true meaning of wealth. But first, he would need to face his own demons and prejudices on a journey that would change not only his life, but the lives of everyone around him. The next morning, Daniel arrived at the palazzo earlier than usual. His tired eyes betrayed a sleepless night filled with thoughts and plans. When Sophia and Elena arrived, promptly at 6 o'clock, he was waiting for them in his office. "Have a seat," he said, indicating the Italian leather chairs that had never been occupied by cleaning staff before. The girls exchanged apprehensive glances but complied. "Why didn't you tell me about your situation?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. Elena paled, but Sophia stood her ground. "We didn't want your pity, sir. Just a chance to work." The answer hit Daniel like a punch. It was exactly what he would have said in his youth. He observed the two of them more closely. Elena tried to hide a cough, while Sophia instinctively grabbed her sister's hand. "Eleanor needs a doctor," he said, not as a suggestion but as an observation. "We can't afford it," Sophia replied, and for the first time her voice shook. "We've tried the health clinics, but—" "I'm not asking if you can afford it," Daniel interrupted. "I'm saying I'm taking you to the doctor today." The silence that followed was thick. Victoria, who was passing by at the time, stopped when she heard the conversation. In 15 years, she had never seen Daniel offer help to anyone. "Why?" Eleanor asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel stood up, walked to the window, and watched the city as it began to wake up. "Because some things are more important than money." It took me a long time to remember that. That very morning, Daniel cancelled all his meetings, a first for his meticulous routine. He took the girls to the best private clinic in town, where Dr. Adrian, his personal physician, saw them immediately. The diagnosis was worrying. Elena had severe pneumonia, aggravated by constant exposure to cold and humidity. She would need immediate hospitalization and intensive treatment. "How long was she like this?" the doctor asked, frowning as he examined the scans. "A few weeks," Sophia replied, silent tears streaming down her face. She didn't want to stop working. "We needed the food." Daniel felt something break inside him. Here was a 12-year-old child, carrying responsibilities that would make most adults give up, and his sister, equally young, wasting away in fear of losing the family's only source of support. "Dr. Adrian," he said, his voice firm, "I want her to receive the best treatment possible. Don't hold back on anything." While Elena was being prepared for admission, Daniel took Sophia to the hospital cafeteria. He watched her devour a sandwich as if it were her first decent meal in days, and it probably was. "Your mother and brothers," he began, choosing his words carefully, "cannot continue to live in those conditions." Sophia dropped her sandwich, immediately tensing up. "We have nowhere to go. We've tried shelters, but—" "I have an empty property on Rua das Acacias," Daniel interrupted. "It was a house I bought as an investment. It's furnished and ready to move into." Sophia's eyes widened. Rua das Acacias was known for its comfortable houses in a safe neighborhood close to the center. "We can't afford rent like this," she said, looking down. "I'm not offering rent, I'm offering a home," Daniel replied, surprised by his own words. "Your family needs a fresh start, and I need to do something that really matters." At that moment, Victoria called Daniel's cell. Phone? The restaurant was busy, important customers were waiting, decisions needed to be made. For the first time in his life, Daniel answered something he had never imagined saying. Not today, Victoria. There are more pressing things to attend to. Turning to Sophia, he continued, We'll go get your family now. Today you'll sleep in a safe, warm place. The girl began to cry, not from sadness, but from an emotion she couldn't name. Daniel, awkward with displays of emotion, simply placed his hand on her shoulder. Thank you, she whispered between sobs. But why are you doing all this? Daniel was silent for a moment, considering his answer. Finally, he said, Because you reminded me of who I was, and who I should have continued to be. The day that had started like any other was turning into a milestone in the lives of everyone involved. While Elena received the necessary medical care, Daniel and Sophia set out on a mission that would change not only the destiny of a family, but also the heart of a man who had forgotten the value of compassion. The city outside continued its frenetic pace, oblivious to the small revolution taking place in the heart of one of its most influential citizens. The palazzo, a symbol of luxury and exclusivity, awaited its owner, who for the first time in years had found something more valuable than his profits and prestige. The afternoon sun was already setting when Daniel parked his car near the bridge. Sophia guided him through the unfamiliar territory while he carried bags of groceries they had bought along the way. The transformation that was about to happen in the family's life would begin with a simple gesture, making sure that everyone went to bed that night with a full stomach. Anna, the twins' mother, couldn't hold back her tears as Sophia explained everything that had happened. The younger siblings, Luca, 10, twins Leon and Noah, 8, Clara, 6, and Mia, 4, watched Daniel with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Sir, Anna began, her voice shaking, I cannot accept. Please call me Daniel, he interrupted gently. And yes, you may accept. You must accept. For your children. As they made their impromptu move, Daniel learned more about the family's history. Anna had been a literature teacher, but a series of misfortunes, including a serious illness that wiped out the family's savings, had led them to this situation. Her husband had abandoned them when Mia was still a baby, leaving her to raise 7 children alone. The girls are my strength, Anna confessed, watching Sophia organize the family's few belongings. They grew up too fast, taking on responsibilities that shouldn't be theirs. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He remembered his own mother, who had been gone for years, and how she had always said that true wealth lay in the ability to help others. Moving to the house on Rua das Acacias was like a dream come true for the children. The house, which Daniel kept as an investment, was a cozy 3-bedroom building with a small garden at the back. For someone who lived under a ihe bridge, it looked like a palace. There's a bathroom in the house, Mia exclaimed in amazement, running from room to room. Luca, the oldest of the boys, approached Daniel timidly. Sir, can we really stay here? You can, Daniel replied, surprised by the smile that formed on his lips. And tomorrow we will furnish each room properly. That night, as the children slept in real beds for the first time in months, Daniel and Anna talked on the small porch. How can I ever repay you for all this? She asked, still stunned by the sudden change in their lives. Daniel thought for a moment. I have a proposal. The palazzo needs someone to coordinate cultural events, soirees, poetry nights, musical performances. With your background in literature. Anna's eyes lit up. But it's been so long since I've practiced my profession. Knowledge is not lost, he replied, and something tells me that the restaurant can only benefit from a more human touch. At the hospital, Eleanor was receiving her first doses of antibiotics. Victoria, the restaurant manager, had offered to stay the night with her, allowing Sophia to stay with the family for her first night in their new home. News of Daniel's actions began to spread among the palazzo staff. Marco, the maitre d', could not hide his astonishment at seeing his boss, always so calculating, acting with such generosity. The boss is different, he told Victoria on the phone, while she was still in the hospital. It's like something has awakened in him. Maybe he just needed a reason to change, Victoria replied, watching Elena sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks. The next morning, the palazzo witnessed another significant change. Daniel gathered the entire team before the restaurant. Opened. Starting today, he announced, we will implement some changes. First, any food left over at the end of the day will be donated to charity. Second, we will create a job training program for young people in vulnerable situations. The employees looked at each other in surprise. This was not the Daniel they knew. And there's more, he continued. I want each of you to think of ways to make Palazzo not just a luxury restaurant, but a place that makes a difference in people's lives. While the team excitedly discussed the new possibilities, Daniel retreated to his office. On his desk, he found a colorful drawing. It was Mia's work, depicting the entire family, including him, in front of their new house. In the corner of the paper, in childish handwriting, was written, "Our family has grown." Daniel carefully put the drawing away in his drawer, along with the first note he had found from the twins. He now realized that his true fortune lay not in the numbers in his bank account, but in his ability to transform lives, including his own. Daniel's metamorphosis was just beginning, and with it, a new story was being written not only for a family, but for an entire community that was beginning to rediscover the true meaning of the word humanity. 2 weeks had passed since the family had moved into the house on Rua das Acacias. The palazzo continued to operate as usual, but a new spirit was in the air. The most visible change was not in the decor or the menu, but in the people who worked there. Anna began her work as the restaurant's cultural coordinator with an infectious energy. Her first initiative was to organize a literary gathering on Wednesdays, transforming the sophisticated environment into a space for art and culture. Literature and gastronomy are ways to nourish the soul, she explained to Daniel, as they organized the program for the first event. The restaurant, which had previously served only the local elite, began to attract a more diverse audience on cultural event nights. Local artists, students, and literature lovers mingled with regular customers, creating a unique environment of social integration. Elena, still recovering, received daily visits from Victoria, who had developed a special affection for the girl. During these visits, she discovered that the girl had a natural talent for numbers and organization. You know, Daniel, Victoria commented during a meeting, Elena has the potential to be an excellent administrator. She helped me reorganize the entire hospital inventory system while she was in the hospital. Daniel smiled, remembering how he had noticed this trait in the girl. When she fully recovers, we can offer her an apprenticeship program in the restaurant's administrative area. Sophia, meanwhile, flourished in her new role at the Palazzo. Daniel promoted her from cleaning assistant to events assistant, where her natural ability to deal with people shone through. She had a knack for making everyone feel welcome, regardless of their social background. The changes did not go unnoticed by local society. Some traditional customers, like Olivia, became enthusiastic about the new initiatives. Daniel, Olivia said over dinner, you have transformed this place into something extraordinary. It is no longer just a fancy restaurant, it is a space for social transformation. However, not everyone welcomed the changes. Some members of the local elite began to question the new direction of the establishment. Mixing different social classes could harm the exclusivity of the Palazzo, argued Alex, an influential businessman, during a trade association meeting. Daniel, who would have previously agreed with such an argument, now saw things differently. True exclusivity, Alex, is creating an environment where everyone can develop their potential. At home, Anna's family was starting to get back on their feet. Luca and the twins, Leon and Noah, were back in school, thanks to a partnership Daniel had established with a local school. Clara and Mia, the youngest, spent their afternoons at a newly created social project on the restaurant's premises. One afternoon, while overseeing the project's activities, Daniel found Luca reading intently in a corner of the makeshift library. "What are you reading?" he asked, sitting down next to the boy. "A book about entrepreneurship," Luca replied, his eyes shining. "I want to be like you when I grow up, Uncle Daniel." The word uncle took Daniel by surprise. It was the first time one of the children had called him that, and something inside him warmed at that simple gesture of affection. In the hospital, Eleanor continued her recovery, now with frequent visits from a private tutor that Daniel had hired so that she wouldn't miss the school year. Her determination to study, even during treatment, impressed everyone. "She has her persistence," Dr. Adrian commented during a follow-up visit, "and her business acumen too." In fact, Elena had already drawn up a detailed plan to improve the restaurant's efficiency, which she would present to Daniel once she was discharged. Her sharp mind for management did not rest even during her recovery. The Palazzo, previously known only for its refined cuisine, began to gain prominence in the local media for its social initiatives. A report in the local newspaper highlighted the professional training program, which had already benefited 15 young people in vulnerable situations. "What changed in you, Daniel?" Marco asked one night after the restaurant closed. Daniel watched the movement of the street through the window of his office before answering, "I realized that I built an empire of crystal, but I lived in a prison of gold. Those girls and that family, they freed me." Night was falling over the city, and the lights of the Palazzo shone like a beacon of hope in the city. In the office, on Daniel's desk, a new pile of the children's drawings was piling up, each one telling a story of transformation and new beginnings. The metamorphosis continued, not only in the lives of Daniel and Anna's family, but in everyone who was touched by this unlikely story of redemption and humanity. The Palazzo, once a symbol of exclusivity and ostentation, gradually transformed into a catalyst for social change, proving that true wealth lies in the ability to transform lives. The success of the Palazzo's changes began to bother some members of the local elite more intensely. On a particularly hectic morning, Daniel received an anonymous envelope containing old newspaper clippings about cases of establishments that had gone bankrupt after changing their target audience. Alex, who in addition to being a businessman, was also president of the Commercial Association of Barrio Nobre, called an extraordinary meeting with other owners of establishments in the region. The main topic, the worrying changes in the profile of Palazzo. "What is happening with the Palazzo is a dangerous precedent," Alex argued during the meeting. "Today there are literary gatherings and social programs. Tomorrow we will have the entire neighborhood stripped of its character." Meanwhile, at the restaurant, Anna was preparing the next cultural event, an art exhibition that would bring together works by established artists and young talents from the outskirts of the city. The idea came about after discovering that Luca had a natural talent for drawing. "Mommy, look!" Mia exclaimed, showing a poster she had made to promote the exhibition. Her childish letters blended in with her brother's colorful drawings. Daniel watched the scene with satisfaction when Victoria hurried into his office. "We have a problem," she said, handing him a paper. "3 of our largest suppliers have cancelled their contracts without explanation." Daniel examined the documents, noticing a pattern. All the suppliers had connections to Alex's companies. "They want to pressure us," he concluded, remaining calm. "But they don't know that I've already built alternatives." In fact, in recent weeks, Daniel had established partnerships with small local producers, many of them family farmers. The quality of the products was exceptional, and the prices were fair. Elena, who had finally been discharged from the hospital, was already immersed in the administrative work of the restaurant. With her natural acumen for numbers, it was she who first noticed something interesting. "Uncle Daniel," she said, showing a spreadsheet on her tablet, "since we started buying from small producers, our profit margin has increased by 15%. Daniel smiled proudly. The girl had a natural talent for management that impressed him more and more every day. However, external pressure continued to mount. Traditional customers began cancelling reservations, some of which had been scheduled months ago. Vicious comments circulated in the city's social circles. "They say the Palazzo has become a community center," said Olivia, who remained loyal to the restaurant. "But you know what? I've never seen this place so alive." Sophia, now coordinating the events together with her mother, had a brilliant idea. "Invite the critics to a special dinner. We can show that culture and high-quality gastronomy can go hand in hand," she argued. "And even better, we can prove that social inclusion does not mean losing excellence." Daniel agreed to the plan. The dinner would be organized in 2 weeks, enough time for flawless preparation. Meanwhile, the family continued its transformation. Leon and Noah, the twins, discovered a talent for music through classes offered by the restaurant's social project. Clara developed a special interest in cooking, always watching the chef's work closely. One afternoon, Daniel found Anna crying silently in the restaurant's library. "What happened?" he asked, worried. "They're tears of happiness," she replied, holding up a notebook. "Mia wrote her first story today. She would never have had this opportunity if—" The words hung in the air, but the meaning was clear. The transformation went far beyond the material aspect. It was about giving opportunities, about rescuing dreams. Later that week, Daniel received another anonymous letter, this time with a more threatening tone. "You are destroying what you have built. Turn back while there is still time." But Daniel was no longer the same man who allowed himself to be intimidated by veiled threats. True strength, he had learned, lay in the ability to remain true to one's values, even in the face of adversity. "Do you know what impresses me most about you?" Marco said as they made preparations for the special dinner. "It's that for the first time in 15 years you seem truly happy." Daniel looked out the window of his office, observing the movement of the restaurant. In the dining room, Sophia was instructing the waiters on the next event. In the kitchen, Clara was learning how to make brigadeiros with the pastry chef. In the office next door, Elena was concentrating on spreadsheets and reports. Happiness, Daniel reflected, is seeing that we can make a difference in people's lives. The storm brewing behind the scenes of the city's high society was just beginning. But now Daniel had something he had never had before, a family that supported him and the certainty that he was on the right path. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky in orange tones. At the palazzo, the lights began to come on, not only illuminating the physical space, but also the dreams and hopes of everyone who found their place there. The night of the special dinner arrived, bringing with it a palpable tension in the air. The palazzo was immaculate, every detail meticulously planned by Daniel, Anna, and Sophia. The guests, members of the local elite and staunch critics of the recent changes, began arriving promptly at 8 p.m. Alex was one of the first to enter, his critical gaze scanning every corner of the restaurant. "I see you've kept the sophisticated decor," he commented with a slightly sarcastic tone. "True sophistication, Alex, is in the essence, not just the appearance," Daniel replied calmly. As guests settled in, Sophia moved around the room with natural grace, ensuring everyone was comfortable. Her ability to make people feel welcome, regardless of their background, was evident. The evening's menu was a collaborative creation between Palazzo's executive chef and 3 young talents discovered through the restaurant's social program. Each dish told a story of fusion between haute cuisine and the authentic flavors of local culture. While the guests enjoyed the starter, a sophisticated reinterpretation of a typical regional dish, Anna began her presentation. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her steady, melodious voice echoing through the room, "this evening, we would like to share with you not just a meal, but a journey of transformation and discovery." She went on to tell the story of how Palazzo had become more than just a fancy restaurant, but a catalyst for change in the community. She talked about the job training program, the cultural events, and how these had positively impacted not only the participants, but also the business itself. Between one dish and another, young local artists performed small performances. The angelic voice of a teenager from the outskirts of town enchanted everyone with an opera aria, while twins Leon and Noah surprised everyone with a violin duet that drew enthusiastic applause. Daniel watched the guests' reactions closely. He noticed how Alex's expression wavered between skepticism and reluctant admiration. Olivia, on the other hand, did not hide her enthusiasm. At dessert time, prepared by Clara under the supervision of the pastry chef, Daniel decided to make a short speech. "Many of you have known me for years," he began. "You know that I built this restaurant with the goal of being the best, the most exclusive. But I have discovered that true excellence is not in exclusion, but in inclusion, in creating opportunities, in transforming lives." He paused, his eyes sweeping around the room. "The Palazzo has not lost its essence. It has found its true purpose, and I invite all of you to be a part of this journey." The silence that followed was broken by applause. Initiated by Olivia, gradually other guests joined in, creating a wave of approval that surprised even Daniel. After dinner, as the guests dispersed, Alex approached Daniel. "You surprised me," he admitted, a slight smile on his lips. "Perhaps I was hasty in my judgments." "Sometimes, Alex, it takes courage to change your mind," Daniel replied, extending his hand for a conciliatory shake. Later that evening, after the last guest had left, the family gathered in the restaurant kitchen. Elena, who had spent the evening analyzing the guests' reactions and calculating the potential impact on business, presented her findings. "Uncle Daniel," she said, showing a chart on her tablet, "based on today's reactions and market trends, I predict a 30% increase in customers in the next few months." Daniel smiled, proud not only of Elena's insight, but of how the entire family had come together to make the night a success. Anna, exhausted but radiant, hugged her children. "You were amazing," she said, tears of joy in her eyes. At that moment, observing the scene, Daniel felt an emotion he had not experienced for a long time, a sense of belonging. The palazzo, which had previously been just a symbol of his financial success, had become the heart of a family, of a community. As the evening wore on, the group lingered in the kitchen, sharing stories and laughter. Luca showed off his latest drawings, Mia recited a poem she had written, and even shy Noah played a short melody on the violin. Daniel, observing all this, realized that he had found something far more valuable than any material wealth, a purpose. The palazzo was no longer just a restaurant, it was a home, a refuge, a place of transformation and hope. Outside, the city slept, oblivious to the small revolution taking place within its walls. But Daniel knew that the ripples of change generated there would spread, touching lives in ways he could never have imagined. The Dinner of Truth had been more than a gastronomic success. It had been an affirmation of values, a declaration of a new path. And as the family chatted excitedly, planning their next steps, Daniel was certain the best was yet to come. The weeks that followed the special dinner brought a wave of transformation, not only to the palazzo, but to the entire city. The story of the restaurant reinventing itself to embrace a social mission made headlines in local newspapers and soon attracted the attention of national media. One morning, Daniel was surprised by a call from Julia, the host of a famous television program about social entrepreneurship. "Sir," she said excitedly, "we would like to do a special report on the palazzo. Your initiative is exactly the kind of inspiring story that Brazil needs to hear about." The news of the report shook not only the restaurant team, but the entire community that now orbited around it. Anna and Sophia dedicated themselves to organizing a special program for the day of filming, highlighting all the social and cultural projects developed. On the day of the recording, the palazzo was abuzz with activity. The TV crew was impressed by the diversity of initiatives, from cooking classes for young people from the outskirts of the city to a literary gathering that brought together local and national writers. Eleanor, now fully recovered, took on the role of guide, surprising everyone with her detailed knowledge of business management. "It's amazing to see a young woman her age with such a strong understanding of management," Julia commented, impressed. "Uncle Daniel taught me that numbers are important," Elena replied, "but that they only make sense when they change lives." The report captured emotional moments. Luca proudly showing his drawings that now decorate a wall of the restaurant. Clara helping to prepare a dish with the executive chef. The twins Leon and Noah playing for customers during lunch. But the most touching moment came when Anna led the team into the makeshift library at the back of the restaurant. There, Mia was reading aloud to a group of neighborhood children, her clear, confident voice echoing through the space. "Before I could barely read," Mia confessed to the camera, her eyes shining. "Now, I want to be a writer and tell stories that make people smile." The transformation of the palazzo had triggered a chain reaction throughout the city. Inspired by Daniel's initiative, other local entrepreneurs began to develop their own social projects. Alex, once the most vocal critic, was now leading a movement to create a fund to support small entrepreneurs in the outskirts of the city. It has shown us that it is possible to combine business success with social responsibility, Alex said during an interview for the report. We're only just beginning to understand the true potential of this approach. The impact of the changes extended far beyond the economic aspect. The city saw a reduction in juvenile crime rates and an increase in the number of young people returning to school. The palazzo had become a symbol of hope and possibility. At the end of filming, Julia asked to interview Daniel in his office. The walls, once decorated with awards and recognition from the food industry, now displayed drawings of the children and photos from community events. Daniel, Julia began, what motivated you to make such a drastic change in your business and your life? Daniel thought for a moment, his eyes landing on a recent photo of the entire family together. You know, Julia, he replied, for years I thought success meant accumulating wealth, winning awards, being exclusive. But two brave girls taught me that true wealth lies in making a difference in the lives of others. He paused, a genuine smile lighting his face. I found that when we open our hearts and our doors, when we give each other opportunities, we all grow together. The palazzo is no longer just mine. It belongs to this community, to this family we've formed. While the TV crew packed up their equipment, Daniel gathered everyone in the main dining room of the restaurant. Staff, social project participants, Anna's family. Everyone was there, united by an incredible journey of transformation. I want to thank each and every one of you, Daniel said, his voice thick with emotion. You taught me the true meaning of success and family. At that moment, surrounded by smiles and looks of gratitude, Daniel felt a deep certainty. The empire he had built was no longer made of glass, fragile and cold. It was an empire of hearts, strong and welcoming, capable of withstanding any storm. Night fell over the city, and the lights of the palazzo came on, not just illuminating a restaurant, but radiating hope for an entire city. The journey of transformation was far from over, but now united, they were ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. The impact of the national coverage of the palazzo was immediate and far-reaching. In the days following its airing, the restaurant was inundated with calls, emails, and visits from people from all over the country, interested in learning more about the project and even replicating it in their own cities. Daniel, who once spent his days immersed in financial spreadsheets, now found himself constantly in meetings with business people, politicians, and community leaders, all eager to understand how they could implement similar changes in their own contexts. One afternoon, while discussing with Anna and Sophia how to deal with the growing interest, Elena hurried into the office. Uncle Daniel, she said, her eyes shining with excitement, I just got an email from the Federal University. They want me to give a talk on social management to the business administration students. The news was greeted with an outburst of joy. Eleanor, at just 13 years old, was about to become the youngest speaker in the university's history. I'm so proud of you, my daughter, Anna said, hugging her with tears in her eyes. Meanwhile, the other family members were also flourishing in their new opportunities. Luca had been selected to exhibit his drawings at a local art gallery. Clara, inspired by her cooking classes, was developing her own cookbook for children. Twins Leon and Noah had been invited to play in the town's youth orchestra. Mia, the youngest, surprised everyone by announcing that she was writing a book of children's stories based on the stories of the people she met through the Palazzo projects. I want other kids to know that dreams can come true, she explained, with a wisdom beyond her years. The success of Palazzo and its social projects began to attract the attention of social investors from all over the country. One afternoon, Daniel received a visit from Isabel, a renowned social impact investor. Sir, she said after a long conversation about the projects, I am impressed with what you have built here. I would like to propose a partnership to expand this model to other cities. The proposal was tempting. It would mean taking the Palazzo's impact to a national scale, potentially transforming thousands of lives. But it would also mean new challenges and responsibilities. Daniel asked for a few days to think about it. That night, he gathered the whole family together to discuss the proposal. It's an incredible opportunity, Sophia said, excited. about the possibilities. "But it also means we'll have to divide our attention," Anna said. "We can't lose sight of what we've built here in the city." The discussion continued into the night, with each family member expressing their opinions and concerns. It was Mia who, with her childlike simplicity, offered an illuminating perspective. "You know, Uncle Daniel," she said, "it's like when we plant a tree. First it grows strong here, but then its seeds can fly away and create new trees in other places." Mia's words resonated deeply with Daniel. He realized that the palazzo had become more than a business. It was a legacy that could benefit far beyond the city limits. The next morning, Daniel called Isabel and accepted the partnership proposal, with one condition. The expansion model would have to preserve the local essence of each new project, adapting to the specific needs and cultures of each community. The months that followed were a whirlwind of activity. While Daniel and Elena worked on structuring the expansion plan, Anna and Sophia focused on further strengthening community ties in the city. The palazzo became a hub for social innovation, attracting researchers and students interested in understanding and replicating its successful model. The library, which had started as a small space in the back of the restaurant, now occupied an entire floor, becoming a cultural landmark in the city. One afternoon, while watching the people in the restaurant, Daniel was approached by a newly hired young waiter. "Sir," the young man said shyly, "I wanted to thank you. A year ago, I was on the streets with no prospects. Palazzo's training program changed my life." Daniel felt a lump in his throat. It was in these moments that he realized the true value of what they had built. As expansion plans moved forward, Daniel realized he would need to delegate more responsibilities. In a meeting with the team, he announced that Sophia would take over overall management of the palazzo in the city, while he and Elena would focus on national expansion. "You built this as much as I did," he said, looking at Anna and her children. "I trust you to keep alive the essence of what we created here." That evening, the family gathered for a special dinner at the palazzo. The restaurant was closed to customers, but filled with employees, participants in social projects, and friends who had become part of this large family. As everyone shared stories and laughter, Daniel looked around and felt a deep sense of gratitude. The empire he had built was no longer made of marble and crystal, but of dreams, hopes, and transformed lives. The palazzo, which had begun as a symbol of exclusivity, was now a beacon of inclusion and possibility. And as new challenges loomed on the horizon, Daniel knew that together they were ready to spread their roots and give wings to their dreams, bringing hope and transformation far beyond the city limits. The year that followed the partnership with Isabel was one of intense transformation and growth. The palazzo model began to be implemented in other cities, each with its own unique characteristics and challenges. Daniel and Elena traveled constantly, overseeing the opening of new restaurant schools in other cities. Each new establishment followed the original palazzo philosophy, combining fine dining with positive social impact. The new restaurant, called Palazzo Esperanza, focused on empowering homeless youth. Palazzo Mare worked with single mothers in the communities, offering training in gastronomy and entrepreneurship. Palazzo Cultura incorporated elements of Afro culture, promoting Bahian cuisine and supporting local artists. Meanwhile, back in the city, Sophia took over the helm of the original palazzo with a mix of enthusiasm and responsibility. Under her leadership, the restaurant continued to thrive, maintaining its commitment to culinary excellence and social impact. Anna expanded the cultural program, transforming the palazzo into a true arts center. Exhibitions of local artists, musical performances, and literary workshops became regular events, attracting people from all walks of life. One afternoon, during a video call with his family, Daniel received exciting news from each of his children. Luca announced that he had been accepted into a visual arts program in Italy, an opportunity he never would have imagined possible just a few years earlier. Clara, now 15, shared that her children's cookbook would be published by a major national publisher. Twins Leon and Noah, about to turn 17, were invited to tour with the Brazilian Youth Orchestra. Mia, the youngest at 13, proudly revealed that her book of short stories had won a Children's Literary Award. Elena, who at 14 was already considered a young prodigy in social management, was about to give a TED Talk on youth entrepreneurship and social impact. Daniel felt a rush of emotion as he heard each achievement. It was hard to believe that only 2 years had passed since 2 skinny girls had shown up at his restaurant asking for work. However, not everything was rosy. With the expansion came new challenges. In some cities, they faced resistance from local businessmen fearful of competition. In others, bureaucracy and corruption made it difficult to implement social projects. One night, after a particularly difficult day dealing with resistant politicians, Daniel called Sophia for advice. "Isa," he said wearily, "sometimes I wonder if we're expanding too fast. Maybe we should just focus on the city." Sophia was silent for a moment before answering. "Remember what Mia said about seeds flying and creating new trees? Uncle Daniel, what we are doing is too important to be restricted to just one city. Yes, there are challenges, but think of how many lives we are impacting." Sophia's words renewed Daniel's determination. He realized that every obstacle was an opportunity for learning and growth. Meanwhile, the impact of the Palazzo's work was beginning to be recognized internationally. UNESCO invited Daniel to speak at a conference on education and sustainable development in Paris. The Palazzo's model was presented as a successful case of social integration through gastronomy and culture. During the conference, Daniel met social entrepreneurs from several countries, all interested in adapting the Palazzo model to their own realities. Partnerships began to form, and plans soon emerged to take the concept to countries in Latin America and Africa. Back in Brazil, Daniel gathered the entire management team from the different Palazzos for a week of strategic planning. It was a time to reflect on the path taken and to outline the next steps. During this week, an exciting surprise awaited Daniel. Anna and her children had organized a special exhibition at the original Palazzo entitled Seeds of Transformation. The exhibition told the story of the restaurant through photos, videos, and testimonials from its early days to its national expansion. As he walked through the exhibition, Daniel found himself in front of an enlarged photo. It was the image of Sophia and Elena on the day they first showed up at the restaurant asking for work. Next to it was a recent photo of the whole family, smiling in front of the Palazzo. In that moment, surrounded by his family, team, and friends, Daniel felt a deep sense of gratitude. The empire he had built was no longer about material wealth or personal prestige. It was about transformation, opportunity, and hope. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Daniel looked to the future with renewed energy. The road ahead still held many challenges, but he now knew he was not alone. With his family, team, and a growing network of allies, they were ready to sow the seeds of transformation even further. The Palazzo, which had begun as a dream of individual success, had become a collective mission of social change, and that mission, Daniel realized, was just beginning. 5 years have passed since Palazzo's national expansion. What had started as a single restaurant in the city was now a chain of 20 establishments spread across Brazil, each with its own identity and unique local impact. On a sunny Sunday morning, Daniel woke up early in his apartment. Today was a special day. The Palazzo had completed 7 years since the arrival of Sophia and Elena, the moment that changed everything. A grand celebration was planned in the city, bringing together representatives from all the Palazzos in the country. As he prepared for the trip, Daniel reflected on the incredible journey he had experienced. He remembered the cold, calculating businessman he had once been, so far removed from the man he had become. Arriving in the city, Daniel was met at the airport by Sophia, now a young woman of 19, general manager of the original Palazzo. "Welcome back, Uncle Daniel," she said, hugging him warmly. "Everyone is looking forward to seeing you." On the way to the restaurant, Sophia updated Daniel on the latest developments. The city's Palazzo had become a hub for social innovation, attracting researchers and entrepreneurs from around the world. When they arrived, Daniel was surprised by the transformation of the space. What was once just a restaurant now occupied an entire block, with spaces dedicated to training workshops, an art gallery, a community library, and even a small theater. Anna, always elegant at 47, greeted him at the entrance. "Daniel, I'm so glad you're here. We have a surprise for you." She led him to a new space in the complex, the Museum of Social Transformation. There, the history of the palazzo and its impact were told through interactive exhibits, videos, and moving testimonials. Daniel walked through the rooms, amazed at the magnitude of what they had built. An entire wall was dedicated to the children of the palazzo, young people who had gone through the training programs and were now successful professionals in various fields. In a special room, she found her family gathered together. Luca, now 22, had recently returned from studying in Italy and was an internationally recognized artist. Clara, at 20, was a renowned chef and ran nutritional education programs in public schools. Twins Leon and Noah, aged 22, alternated between touring with famous orchestras and teaching music to underprivileged children. Mia, aged 18, was preparing to launch her third book, having become an important voice in Brazilian young adult literature. And Elena, the little business genius, now 19, divided her time between studying business administration and coordinating Palazzo's international expansion programs. "You are living proof that dreams can come true," said Daniel emotionally, hugging each of them. The celebration began at noon, with the restaurant packed with employees, beneficiaries of social projects, partners, and authorities. Daniel took the stage to give his speech, feeling the weight of responsibility and gratitude. "7 years ago," he began, "2 brave girls taught me the true meaning of wealth. Since then, we have built something bigger than ourselves. Palazzo is no longer just a restaurant or a chain of establishments. It is a movement for social change." He continued, highlighting the impressive numbers achieved. More than 10,000 young people trained, 500 small businesses incubated, 50 public schools benefiting from educational programs, and a significant reduction in juvenile crime rates in the areas where Palazzo operated. "But beyond the numbers," Daniel continued, "what really matters are the lives transformed. Every dream realized, every family that found hope, every community that grew stronger. That is the true legacy of the Palazzo." At the end of his speech, Daniel made a surprising announcement: the creation of the Palazzo Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to expanding the social impact model to sectors other than gastronomy. "The next chapter of our journey," he explained, "is to share what we've learned, inspire other entrepreneurs to look beyond profit, and create a movement for purposeful business across the country." The audience erupted in applause. Among the guests, Daniel recognized familiar faces: Alex, now an ally and partner in social projects, Olivia, who had become one of the largest donors to educational programs, and even some of the former critics, who now enthusiastically supported the Palazzo's initiatives. After the event, at night, Daniel met with his family on the restaurant's balcony. The city's starry sky shone above them, like a promise of infinite possibilities. "Looking back," Anna said, holding Daniel's hand, "it's hard to believe everything that happened. You not only saved our family, but you gave hope to so many others." Daniel smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. "In fact," he replied, "you are the ones who saved me. You have shown me that true success lies in making a difference in the lives of others." As the evening wore on, with laughter and lively conversation echoing across the balcony, Daniel reflected on the incredible journey he had been on. The Palazzo, once a symbol of his personal ambition, had become the catalyst for much greater change. The future, he knew, would bring new challenges and opportunities. But now, surrounded by his family and the legacy they had built together, Daniel was certain of one thing: a true empire was not built on marble walls or fat bank accounts. It was built on compassion, courage, and an unwavering belief in the potential of every human being. And so, under the starry sky of the city, a new page of this story began to be written, promising as the dawn of a new day.